I'm joined today by Azadeh Nikzadeh.
They came to the street in millions. People in Iran want regime change. I wasn't even allowed to wear brown shoes. They cut the tongue and the hands of the people who were able to speak Persian. I talk to people from Iran. They tell me we're looking at the sky. It's against humanity. Every one of us were under this oppression.
Now it's younger generation leading the protest.
We're waiting for the planes, and it's a very strange feeling. You want foreigners to attack your country. We don't know the exact number. They think 33,000. The slaughter happened during 2 days.
They are so courageous because they are aware that when they go to this protest, they're gonna be killed.
You know, I was born in Iran in the 80s. I grew up under total oppression as an Iranian filmmaker, and also as someone that lives in this country, and I love USA. It's my home.
Welcome to Not Silent Podcast. In early January of this year, millions of Iranians took to the street in one of the largest protests in the country's modern history, demanding change and democratic future. What followed was a violent crackdown. According to the latest data, as many as 30,000 people have been killed and hundreds of thousands of people have been arrested. The government also shut down the internet, cutting communication and limiting what the world could see. This is the moment Iran finds itself in today. To help us understand what's happening beyond the headlines, I'm joined today by Azadeh Nikzadeh, an Iranian filmmaker and impact producer, speaking not only as a storyteller, but as an Iranian woman sharing her lived experience. Azadeh, welcome and thank you for being in my podcast.
Thank you so much for the opportunity.
So what is happening right now in Iran?
You know, right now, as you mentioned, it was a very great introduction. As you mentioned, what is happening right now in Iran, people started a revolution. It started from the collapsing economy that's actually the government, the regime in Iran is responsible for. And then, people, and I want to say that people in Iran, they've been doing these protests since 2009. And each time there was some sort of a crackdown. And to this point, people understand that this regime is the problem. No matter, so if they do protest, they will not be heard. So that's why they came to the street in millions, demanding the regime change. That was what they wanted. And we heard in the protest, all the slogans that they were chanting. It was about a regime change. It was down to death to the dictator, who is Khamenei, the supreme leader. And they wanted a total regime change. And that's what is happening. People in Iran want regime change. They don't want reform. They don't want only the Khamenei is removed and then we have IRGC. They want a total removal of the current system, which is Islamic regime. And we also saw that how this regime is using Islam as a form of a weapon,
Yeah.
It's using it and killing people. Is a revolution against the system, against the Islamic regime, and what they want is the regime change, total regime change.
Azadeh, people, especially in the Western countries, when they say Iranians want to get rid of Islamic regime, and they think Iran is an Islamic country, they don't understand more in depth. So we are hearing reports of arrest, hanging young men and women because they were protesting. We have seen the latest footages of the youth, so modern, so pro-Western. They didn't understand what really is happening in Iran. So they have been living since 1979 under this Islamic terror. So who are those people being most targeted by this regime?
Honestly, the Iranian people, I want to tell that you mentioned that Iranian people we say we are not Muslim, and I need to take you back to the 7th century. There was a war between Muslim Arabs and Persian Empire, which Persians lost, and it's called Qadisiyah. And then Arab Muslims brought Islam. They import Iranian through massacre, through rape, slavery, and inhumane laws such as like Iranians cannot even own a donkey. Like, can you imagine that? And Iranians cannot walk on the Muslim lands, otherwise they would be whiplashed. So and then they cut the tongue and the hands of the people who were able to speak Persian or write in Persian. So it was something that was forced. We were forced to claim that we are Muslim, otherwise we would be killed. And that continued through having regime, like people, like government for the past 1400 years that were forcing Iranians to claim that they are Muslims, otherwise they would be killed. But from the past 500 years, there was like a dynasty that mixed Islam and brought Shiism. Iran wasn't a Shia country. They brought Shiism and mixed with like politics and state. So there was a mix of Islam and state, and they started killing people and forced everyone into saying that they're Shia. And then during the Pahlavi dynasty, it was a secular government. There was the separation. But in 1979, again, this political Islam took over.
So sorry to interrupt you here, because we need to make this, because what happened in 1979? So before the time when people have seen the videos of, it was like a golden age in terms of people dressed like in more of the Western way, so open-minded. And in 1979, we have an Islamist regime convincing the society that everybody's going to be equal. So we have the left wing and Islamists coming both together, which they have the same ideology against Western values, but they managed to come to power. And what happened? Like, first of all the Jews were like deported, like outside the Iran, took their property. And when women were forced to cover, and then it started the terror against Iranian people. I want to like you to explain this switch, because we've seen in the protest of older generations saying that for 49 years we've been living in the hell. So it started in 1979.
Yes, it started in 1979 with a lot of far left, and left in Iran is more toward communism. There were these communist groups that were very active, and they started this kind of revolution, and some of them, they were armed. And then they also joined force with Islamists. And after the revolution, the Islamists killed all the left, all the communists, and took power. And what they brought is Islam. Sharia law that comes directly from Quran. So they put the laws, all the laws that they put, it's come directly from Islam. For example, a man can marry four women, child marriage, like age of 9, and we know that is happening. And again, like a lot of oppression on women and even men, to be honest. Like in a society, it wasn't only against women and against Jews, it's against humanity. It's against humanity. Every one of us were under this oppression, and like the aggressiveness toward everyone else made our country small, made our country like isolated. And like younger I grew up in a time in Iran that where I wasn't even allowed to wear brown shoes, and younger and like the colors that I was allowed to wear at school was black, gray, and dark blue, very like midnight blue. So that was the color. And I remember like I had brown shoes because I really loved the shoes. I bought them and I was so scared of wearing them because it would have consequences for me. I could get arrested and punished and even, put on probation from school and things like that. And, sometimes even like wearing white socks. So we are talking about like something that is like, it's not about just big laws. It's about like this scrutiny in your life, the details of your life, even to the point of the color that you can wear or you cannot wear. That's and oppression, and that's become it becomes friction. But what happened in your like my generation versus current generation, and
Yeah,
so
that's what I want to, sorry to interrupt you, to come up with this. So since 1979, so when Islamist clerics took power in Iran, so people have lived under decades of repression.
yes,
Now it's younger generation leading the protest. So what happened?
yes, I think internet happened. They put a lot, since 2010, they put a lot using Chinese technology. They were able to put a lot of filters on internet, but still there are some ways for Iranian younger generation to communicate with the world, and to see like how the people outside Iran live and how they live, and they cannot accept it any longer. And they're very they're very brave. They demand, they continue living. I think that was there's a difference. Like they continued living what and doing whatever they wanted. And the government, I don't know, they had to show a little bit of flexibility, but never enough. And that's why, like, I think the awareness using communication through social media and internet, and that's why we see that like when the revolution happened, the regime shut down the internet because they don't want this.
Yeah, because to come up at the world to see what is happening.
Exact.
So what we have seen, the younger generation, the population, very like open-minded, pro-Western, listening to the Western music. So which means they have been living this life because they have built this mindset in the hiding way because they had a regime. They couldn't do it this openly. So this was living this way, hiding from, but now for them it's enough. But what is their hope? How do the Iranian people hope that the regime is going to change?
Honestly, when I talk to people from Iran, they tell me we're looking at the sky, we're waiting for the planes to arrive because they were promised. There was a promise. People were chanting, people were in the streets, and they were getting slaughtered, and there was like promise that, oh, help is on the way, and people still waiting for. They tell me like every day we wake up, we look at the sky, we're waiting for the planes, and it's a very, very strange feeling when you know that you ask or you want to foreigners to attack your country. But we also understand that this is not, they're not, we're not being attacked. It's the Islamic regime that is being attacked if it happens. So people is still, it's very heavy, it's very dark. Everyone is so sad, everyone is so disappointed. There is a pain, like there's pain, there is anger, that again they were able to somehow manage, but it's going to explode again. And I hope that like the world, the Western world, the free world, they really hear us and take action and do something. And that's something that we want, is that foreign intervention and attacking the sources of repression in Iran. And they're all military. They've been killing people with military grade weapons that were used, and then they would shoot at like the face. They only pointed at heart and higher, and they attacked hospitals and took the wounded from the hospital.
Yeah.
finishing bullet and throw them in the morgues, thousands by thousands. And we know that, like, we don't know the exact number, but very the organizations that are very trusting, they think 33,000, even more. And the only thing that is comparable to it is the slaughter that happened by Nazis against Jews in Ukraine. I forgot the name of the city, the exact name of the city that it happened, but that's the and this slaughter happened during 2 days. 2 days doing this, and this it's massacre. It's massacre. It should be recognized as crime against humanity, as a massacre of Iranian people. And when I look at the people, they were all young, very beautiful.
They are all, yeah. That's why I'm saying they are so courageous because they are aware that when they go to this protest, they're gonna be killed. They might be killed, and they are being killed. And when you've mentioned they are looking for the sky, I can really relate to this because I was 16, 17 during the war in Kosovo. And when NATO intervened, they bombed Serbia, military and police base. So I know the feeling of hoping and seeing, which you are not seeing it right now, help coming from West. And that's the only hope that you have because you are hopeless living for so many years under that regime and nothing can happen because they have everything under their control. But I want your opinion on not just coming the help from sky, but also you probably were expecting more of the support from the street on the Western countries. And we are not seeing as much as protest. Or why do you think there is a lack of not just awareness, but having an initiative to protest in the support of Iranian people in Western countries?
But this is really sad. We've had like supports from like Jewish community and some of the people on the right, but there was total silence from the left in this country and the left in the West. And unfortunately, it seems to me, this is my personal opinion, it seems that there is a competition of who's more brownness in the left. It's like, okay, for example, Iranians, because they are more pro-West, they are not brown enough, they're not victim enough for us to go to the street and protest. And another thing that I have to mention, a lot of these people, Western left, that we've seen, for example, they've been doing a lot of protests, for example, for Gaza, they are funded. We know for sure there are like funded selective activism. These are funds that come through Islamic Republic. There are funds that come through Qatar and Muslim Brotherhood and CARE. These sort of funds doesn't exist, and we've seen it like in Grammy, in other award season that is happening right now. No one really talks about.
And we see the women, especially like protesting, and it started 2 years ago on they want to remove headscarf as a symbol of oppression, and we don't see anything from the feminist community. They are totally muted from the Western countries. Nothing in that regard is which a huge disappointing. I've been covering for many years and I've experienced myself what it means to face, to challenge extremist Islamic regime. So many people in Iran feel the international response has been muted. So why do you think also not just people, but politics, the West struggled to respond clearly to what's happening in Iran? Because politicians should take decision to do something.
Yes. I want to first tackle this feminist, angle that you mentioned, like the feminists are even silent. And I want to say that woman life freedom was about like women, like women's right, removing scarf. And now people in Iran, they passed that. This is not about gender anymore. If people want regime change, people want freedoms, and it's not even like symbolic that you cut your hair anymore, because a lot of feminists are comfortable doing all these gestures but not really taking any actions. And that's why we see silence about them, because this is real. This is not about, it's not gender based anymore. It's about humanity. A lot of feminists, they
Or
don't
is
like.
it about, sorry to interrupt you, is it about Islam? Because if they react against this regime, it means they are reacting against Islam. So, and they don't want to come up and being seen that they are against, because then you have kind of the clash of what they try to represent, which is so sad
Mhm.
because this regime has been killing people for decades now, and we have the real footages. We have videos of the bodies of the killed protesters in Iran, and they are silent. So is it kind of the also link when it comes to religion?
Yes, it is about Islam. All these massacres and all these laws, they are directly coming from Islam. And the idea that, oh, there is a version of Islam that is dark and there's a version that is good, or Shia is bad, Sunni is good. These are all false. These are all deceit and lies. The fact is that all these things, all these massacres, all these killing are directly coming from Quran, are directly linked to Islam. And people in Iran understand it. Why? Because we are the ones that we were forced to read Quran. The killing, the mass killing, it comes from like certain laws, certain verses in Quran. There's sexual rape against women. It's Nessa, like I don't know how to say that, Nessa verse, some verses in like Quran. So this is about Islam. This is Islam. We call it death cult. We don't even call it religion because we understand it. We understand that, okay, how can you call something religion if it accepts slavery, it accepts rape, it's okay with like killing people and going to heaven? How can that be like?
And it's not happening only in Iran. See what is happening in Afghanistan. You
Yeah.
have the same language, right? So
Yes.
see what Taliban's also in name of religion are not allowing millions of girls to go to school. They cannot, they basically disappear from public life. So this is the source of what happened. And we have seen years ago when they start killing young girls because their hair will be shown. So what is the source? And
Yeah.
why these feminists that were supposed to protect these women, even if it's just gender based, even if it's just gender based, we are not seeing their reaction when it comes to Iran.
Yes, yes, because then, and I also want to mention that if they accept that Islam is a colonizer, like it's a colonizer force, right? Then they have to accept that, for example, Iran was Zoroastrians, Lebanon was Christian, and they call Palestine slash Israel was Jews, and then Jews existed before Palestinians, before Arab Muslims. So there's also another side to that. That they just don't, when it comes to Islam and it comes, they just like because make them against it clashes with the reality.
I think it's exactly. It's sad because it's behind all of this is politics. So it's not human rights, it's not humanity, and that's very disappointing. And I can understand of this younger generation when I see them, they're being killed, they are age of my kids, and they are coming into the streets for this cause to be liberated from this horrible Islamic regime. And the West was supposed to stand for democracy and humanity.
Yeah, I want to say something about protest. And the protest in Iran, I want to say, like, it's very important to me to say that a lot of people that were in the streets on 2 nights, the first night, they didn't expect military grade weapons being shot at them. We've seen like older people in the street. We've seen like many people, they were walking in the street holding their children, so they no one expected to get killed. They were expecting some plaids. That's usually they were used to use usually, and so they went with protection for plaids, but then the regime attacked them with live ammunition. So that's the only thing I wanted to say about like the people that were, and then the first night, they didn't expect it. But the people that went to the streets, and they went to the streets again, millions, despite the fact that the first night the regime used live ammunition, They were the bravest of the bravest you can imagine, and many of them, they were like, they knew they might never come back, and
Yes.
yes, and they might get killed. Because they've seen like the live ammunition in the first night. And I just want to say that like these are the bravest, the most courageous people. And it also tells us like for Iranian people, our country and our identity is so important that, you know, we believe that we die for our country, we die for freedom, and we die to keep our identity, like really. And that I just wanted to mention before moving to myself. You said talk about like myself as a filmmaker. You know, I was born in Iran in the 80s, and it's one of the darkest time in the history of Iran, and couple of massacres happened also in the 80s. But I grew up under total oppression and also censorship at the time, because you know, because of the lack of internet at the time, it was very slow. So when I came, you know, and I grew up like not knowing a lot of things about myself, about my identity, about who I am, and about what happened in Iran. I just knew, even as a child, even when I was 7 years old, I knew that what happened to me was not right. I knew that life is not supposed to be like that. I could see it. I could see, for example, films from the West, and I could see what is happening in Iran. And I like as a child, I could see that, I could feel it, that this life is not supposed to be like that. This is not, something is wrong here. And I just didn't have like the word for like to say it's violence or it's oppression. And you know, and when you know, I became filmmaker in Iran, tried to make films, which was very difficult, you know, both like in terms of lack of you know, equipment and whatever you can do, and also in terms of censorship that became very like, become like more and more every day. By 2000, no, I got arrested in 2009, but by 2010, like the internet was, thanks to the help of like Chinese, the internet in Iran was complete shutdown, and I knew you know, I couldn't continue if I wanted to make films, if I wanted to express myself. It was becoming impossible. So I left the country and I came here. And then here I had to tell people why I cannot go back to my country. You know, because the understanding was like, oh, maybe you have done something bad. Maybe you're the problem. Otherwise, the government won't, you know, come after you. So there was so little understanding about what was happening in Iran at the time. We had to, you know, I had to explain the system of oppression to Americans. And because of that, I also did a lot of research on the oppression and all the events of 1979 all the way into the 80s. I turned that into a feature film. Like I have a script, I'm trying to make it, which is not easy, but and it's very interesting, you know, like all the details, all the massacres, and the style that they used in the 80s, they're also using it now. I call it is the booklet of oppression. They use the same system over and over and over again. I think thanks to the freedom in this country, I was able to find what oppression is, and also find my Iranian identity, which was taken away from me. I think when you are in Iran, they try to take away Iranian identity. We are Zoroastrians, we have Kavians, all these great mythologies and stories and heritage, and we are not Muslim. What the regime wants us to believe is this: oh, we are a part of Ummah, we are a part of this Muslim, and we are Arab, we should speak Arabic, we shouldn't even use Persian words. And like I found like a deep connection and the beauty of my culture, the beauty of our identity, the beauty of our history and stories. And I, you know, as an artist, all I can do is to put that as a story, as a script. Also, something I learned here is how to communicate with Western audiences, American audiences, and again, like walk away from issues and try to translate, have those stories and translate them into something that they understand, that they like, which is within their taste. And hopefully I can achieve that. I can make that film. Is my goal, is my lifetime goal, like to make that film, because it brings a lot of awareness, but in a very commercial, entertaining way. It would be a very entertaining project, but again, you go watch it and it's all detailed information about massacre, about how oppression works. And that's the thing that I was able to achieve as an Iranian woman, as an Iranian filmmaker, and also as someone that lives in this country. And I love USA. It's my home. I do not have any other home right now. I do not have Iranian passport. This is all I have. This country is my home, and I really love it, and I really appreciate being here every second. And so that's the project for me. Is a love story to America and American people, and also it's a love story for my country. And I think that's all I can do.
That's amazing. And you know why it's very important, which we both agree, because people in America and they all say that you were born with a golden ticket, and they really don't know what it means to live under these regimes. And every time since I started this podcast last year in September, but not just because I've been in this journalism for over 20 years, but women, especially from Middle East, they describe the reality. They like, listen, this is what is happening to us. This is what these regimes are doing to women and this, but the West doesn't understand. You know why? Because they haven't lived that.
Exactly.
It's hard to understand without experiencing. Like, you can read books, you can read everything, you can watch movies and all that, but it's different when you hear a story from someone who lived there. And the dangerous thing is allowing that ideology from Middle East to come into the Western countries, to come into the Ivy League universities, professors who are being sponsored, as you say, by Qatar, and these Islamic regimes are spreading and they are brainwashing youth in the United States, not just the United States, in a lot of other Western countries. I've started writing about extremist religious groups and coming mostly from Islam since 2012, and I have seen how fast they are spreading in Europe.
Yes.
So that's very important. So what you're doing is great, is amazing, because through these projects, you are going to achieve to bring the reality in front of the eyes of Americans and to see that what is happening, and they should stand because in your support, not just because Iranian people or Afghan women, but because of the humanity.
Yes, yes. This is very sad. And something about the project that I love is that no one can question it. It's entirely written based on, not based on, like, inspired, like all the details of Amnesty International reports. And that's the power of it. And then layered with mythology and poetry and all these beautiful images never seen before from Iran. And then also you mentioned about like spread of Islam. It's very, very dangerous. It's very, very dangerous and happening. And they use, they use all democracy. They say, they use democracy and democratic word to come and to spread, like, gradually creeping in. Like, I think that's the way. And the reality is that they can it's allowed in Islam to lie. That's the danger. It's allowed. The Quran give you the permission to lie. So they come under pretense and they use democracy. The only thing is that in this country, I still believe in this country more than Europe. Europe is layered with a lot of censorship. But in this country, there is still like system of a certain protection, a check and balance that hopefully prevents Islamists more than what it is. Yeah.
Azadeh, thank you.
Sure.
Thank you so much for.
Yeah, they don't believe it.
Thank you for everything you're doing. I hope your project will have success. I wish you all the best on your mission, on your cause, and hopefully in Iran the situation, so this regime will come the end, and hopefully the international authorities will do something. Thanks a lot.
I thank you so much, and I really, that's our wish, that's our goal, we're gonna win this war. We're gonna war against Islamic regime. It's just a matter of time, and we're determined enough.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.